Welcome to session 4 of Recalibrate Your Soul. Man, I'm loving this whole study of just focusing on the things that matter the most, the things on the inside. And we actually open up this entire study back in session 1, where we asked the question. We've been asking this every single week, and again, next week is the final week, but we're going to ask it even then. But we're going to ask the very, very question that nobody asks. That's how is your soul doing? How is your soul doing? It's kind of like your foundation of your home. If I were to go to your home or you go to my home, most of us would not say, hey, how's your foundation? How's your crawl space? Hey, Joel, can I go into your crawl space under the house and just see how your foundation is? No one does that. And nobody pays attention to their foundation of their house until something goes wrong, a crack, a leak comes through. And that's just like the question, how is your soul doing? The question I have is it full of bitterness? Is it full of anger? Is it full of disappointment? Or maybe you're here and you're like, hey, it's healthy. So is it healthy or is it unhealthy? Either way, you have to identify the condition of your soul, the condition of your heart. And so we've been going through different things that we can do to accomplish a healthy soul. We've been doing different practices that can actually produce a healthy heart, a healthy soul. We started with, it's S-O-U-L, soul, we're going to spell. We start with S, and that's search your heart. We need to have an honest look on what's going on the inside. Is it healthy? We need to identify with the things in my heart, or if they're good or they're unhealthy, is there bitterness that's rooted in. We need to allow God to identify those things. That's the S, search your heart. And we talked about last week is obey the still small voice of God. Now enter maybe the Twilight Zone theme music here if I could, but the fact is God still speaks to his people. The question is, do we obey that still small voice of God, or the whisper of God? Now we're gonna talk about the you in soul, and this is really important because it's very difficult. Some of us are going to be watching this. We're going to go, that is impossible. I can't do what you're telling me to do, Pastor. And I'm not saying here's what you have to do. I'm saying this might be something that you should do in order to have a healthy soul, and that's you unplugging from the noise and the chaos of life. Let me say that one more time. We've got to, all of us, you and I, we've got to unplug from the noise and the chaos of life. Somehow, in the middle of all the noise and the chaos and the life and all this, we've got to figure out how to unplug from all that and be still and be with God and listen to his voice. How in the world do we do that kind of stuff where we unplug things like work? Here, I got my Pepsi shirt. How do we unplug from Pepsi? How do we unplug from our work? How do we unplug from our phone and texting and that kind of stuff, Facebook and doing all that kind of stuff? How do we unplug from that? TV is noisy, right? Video games for the younger people, or if you like video games. Maybe work. We got my computer here that represents my work, Facebook, Netflix. How do we take all those things and how do we unplug from them? How do we take them and just be still and know that God is God? Now, I have a theory, and I really believe it, that nobody can have deep relationships with God, and nobody can have deep relationships with people on the run. In other words, you can't have all this noise constantly. You can't have work. You can't have your kids. In fact, how do you do it when you have kids in the house? There's my son Hayden. How do you do that when you have kids in the house? How do you do it? The fact is, like I was saying, nobody can have a deep relationship with God or people with you constantly having noise and chaos coming out. How do you do it? So you got to find moments where you're going to unplug from all that noise. You need to unplug, and then, as the scripture says, be still and know that God is God. God's going to take care of your life. The world will not fall apart if you're not constantly busy, right? And so the question I have to ask you is, where and when do you have quietness? Where and when do you have a time where you can be alone with God, with no distractions, no TV, no work, no video games, no Facebook, none of this, maybe your kids bug you all the time. Where do you find a moment where you can unplug and be alone with God? Now, in the Go Deeper guide that we provided at church, we actually have a scripture in there, and it's from Mark chapter 1. And this is a day in the life of Jesus. And, some people say, I could never find the time to be alone with God. But here in Mark chapter 1, you have Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah, the one that is going to be he's going to be dead on the cross, going to be killed, he's going to be buried, he's going to be raised from the dead. He's got an important role. We would all agree with that. But he takes time to be alone with his Father. And some of us make excuses like, I could never do that. But if you look at Jesus, I would say one of the most, if not the most busy people of all in the history of the world, he took time to be alone with the Father. Now, in the story of Mark chapter 1, it actually talks about the crowd being pressed in to listen to Jesus. In fact, it actually says the entire town came out to listen to Jesus speak. And all of a sudden in verse 35 of chapter 1 of Mark, it says this: very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and he went alone out of the house to a solitary place where he prayed. Now I love that. Jesus, he withdraws from the chaos, he withdraws from the noise, and he spends time alone with God. Now see, a lot of us struggle to be with God. A lot of us struggle to be in prayer because of all the noise in life. How do you spend time in prayer? How do you pray when your kid's bugging you, or when your job is calling you, or that TV, you have all that TV show on Netflix and you're like, I have to watch it, or your spouse, or this. How do you do it? You find that it's difficult to actually stop and listen to God's still small voice in quietness. In fact, even in the next verse, when we read Mark chapter 1, verse 37, verse 38 says that Simon Peter, he finds Jesus and he says, don't you know that everyone is looking for you? I mean, even Peter, he's saying, you got to stay busy, 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 busy. What are you doing here praying alone? So Jesus, what he does is he models for us times that we need to withdraw from the everyday life, from everyone, from everything, all the responsibilities, all the chaos, all the noise, and we simply have to unplug from all that stuff and to plug in to God. And that's my challenge to you for this week. It's actually fairly simple, but in one instance it's difficult because it is sometimes hard to unplug from everything. But we've got to stop making the excuses why we can't do something and just start doing what God is telling us to do. Now the application. There's application questions. Where can you personally find quietness? Where do you go to find quietness? Number 2, when can you find quietness? I say a lot, and it might seem unspiritual, but sometimes you just got to open up your calendar and maybe even write down how and where and when you can have quietness. And number 3, what area of your life do you need to cut out to free you up some more time to be with God? You don't have to have all the certain different things. Obviously, you can't get rid of your kid or your spouse or this or that, but there's certain hobbies that you don't have to have. You don't have to do this. You don't have to go there. You don't have to be everywhere at once. You don't have to go to every event. Sometimes we just need to cut it out. How do you cut it out of your life to free up some more time to be with God? Now, my recommendation to you is daily, turn off your phone, turn off the TV, turn off the video game, close the laptop, get off Facebook, and listen to the whisper of God to you. And last but certainly not least, the scripture I want you to remember as we leave this session is to be still and know that God is God. Now take some time to go through the Go Deeper guide that was provided to you at church. If not, then you can message me on Facebook or on YouTube. You can put a message or comment in the bottom here, and I'll send you a copy digitally of the Go Deeper guide. So take some time to go through that guide and to spend some time praying and seeking the face of God. God bless you guys. We'll see you for next week to conclude this series. So have a great week. God bless you guys.